Perfect. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started now as we're nearing the top of the hour. So I just want to thank kind of everybody for joining us today. From the Reflexer Labs, Chainlink blockchain community, especially shout out to Stefan Ionescu again for speaking with us today. Again, the kind of the description of this event, basically the discussion is going to be centered on Reflexer Labs, the things they're building, meeting the needs of DeFi, the use of oracles, and kind of the novel architecture being used. So a lot of things for us to explore and kind of deep dive into. So really excited to share this as well. And then essentially the first kind of 20 to 30 minutes is going to be sort of a fireside chat Q&A structure. If we have any time, we'll take any questions from the community as well. So go ahead and make sure to ask those now. And Keenan will go ahead and report those to me as we sort of get them. Again, we'll put all the links, all the description to the video in here as well. And those that maybe have to hop off early, didn't have the opportunity to join us, we will provide the recorded session of this as well on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch us at your leisure. So go ahead and get started. Stefan, I'd love to hear a little bit maybe about yourself, just about your background, how you got involved in this, and then really what you're working on building right now.
Sure. So I started as a blockchain dev about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and in DeFi, specifically a year and a half ago, I came up with the idea of kind of researching stablecoins because I saw that they're kind of the core primitive in DeFi, and I'm mainly interested about finance and kind of manipulating value on the blockchain. So I started researching specifically stablecoins back in September last year, and I was actually pretty lucky to meet someone from Binance who introduced me in their grants program, and they gave me a pretty big amount of money to do research kind of in their ecosystem and see how we might improve on what's already out there, like DAI or whatever some other framework. And I actually started to research DAI pretty extensively. I learned kind of the flip-flop language that they have in smart contracts. And yeah, I just started to build stuff like insurance for CDPs or things that they didn't really have, and I wanted to have in such a system.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, thanks. I know you mentioned a little bit about stable coins and kind of, traditional finance. Do you see, just would love your opinion since we're kind of talking about that now, do you see this as being something that's going to continue to move forward and kind of, I don't want to say take over traditional finance, but maybe start to play a role? Like, how do you kind of see that personally?
I think banks will regulate the DeFi space and they will try to launch their own coins. The idea with what we're building kind of with Reflex Bond is that we kind of build a parallel financial system that you can opt in at any time or opt out of. You don't need to kind of combine the two. You can just have your own life in the DeFi space while you also have your second life in the centralized finance space. It doesn't really matter. I kind of see them as separate in a way.
Okay. So you basically see these sort of parallel world. One, you don't really have a choice in participating in essentially, which is traditional finance, but then with sort of reflexer bonds, you can kind of come and go in and out, as you need it, as you want to interact with that.
Yeah, mainly separate and yeah, mainly kind of different in what they really want to do. DeFi is about kind of openness and about giving you options to, and not forcing you to stay on a specific platform.
Right. Yeah, I do. I think that's the most maybe interesting thing about DeFi is anyone can choose to participate or not choose to participate, and it still functions, kind of regardless of whatever you decide to do.
Yep.
I guess so. Then, kind of getting in, a little more granular. Would love to know. So, obviously, there was the announcement about the Chainlink integration. So, would love to explore that a little bit more. Why did that kind of make sense from your perspective? To utilize the Chainlink network here. And I guess basically the next question is, how are you utilizing it?
Chainlink already proved that. I mean, you already proved that you can support multiple projects. You can support a lot of value on top of your network. So that's why we basically chose what's the easy path. We chose what's already out there and it's already used by other people. The integration was really, really simple. I mean, that's kind of a second reason for which I chose Chainlink. We chose Chainlink is because we wanted to launch something that's not complete, but at least launch something on Kovan, have something out there so that this is not vaporware. The project is real. We're actually building something and we want to help DeFi. And that's why it was really easy to integrate with you. I think it took, I don't know, a day and a half compared to other solutions that would take a couple of days or maybe more than a week. And it was, yeah, really simple again.
Awesome. Perfect. And then I guess then the next question is what purpose do oracles kind of serve in the, in your product?
Sure. So for RAI, specifically for our first Reflex bond, we want to back it only with ETH. So we want to keep it kind of very simple. We want to have kind of an MVP of what a Reflex bond is and what it represents. And we will use Chainlink mainly to push ETH price feeds into the system so that the system can determine how much debt you can draw, how much RAI you can create per 1 unit of collateral, per 1 unit of ETH.
Okay. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And is it a similar, structure to Maker where basically you put funds or essentially lock funds in and then you get RAI out? Is that basically how it works?
Yeah. So we basically forked Maker, but we are kind of not, you can say improve or change the system because we're adding specific kind of different things. We're adding this new Oracle mechanism that we will talk about today. We translated all the variable names so that you can actually understand the code. And we're building the PI controller that will control the system automatically without me, Amin, or someone else from Reflexer deciding what to do with the stability or whatever other parameter in the system. So we're kind of trying to improve the system and automate it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think definitely automation is a great goal when you're dealing with these things where you can build it in hands off. I know you talked about kind of, doing an MVP first and then, building upon that. Interested to know, why did you choose to go with that approach versus we've seen other products in the space where essentially they launch everything at once and almost, I guess you'd say it's like a live test, but almost like their test net's essentially live on Ethereum. Why did you take the approach that you took here?
I've always worked with startups, and I hate the monolithic approach where you spend years building something and then only after that try to launch and then possibly have a bug and then go back to building and then try after 1 year to launch again and hopefully not have bugs. So I like to launch stuff that's on testnet, that's broken, most probably broken. But at least we give the community a chance to express their opinion on how this should be done, on how we can improve the system before we actually launch on mainnet, a version that's audited, formally verified, and so on. So I like the startup approach. I like the lean approach.
Awesome. Well, and I guess it helps you get feedback quickly early in the process,
Yeah.
and then make those changes and get user feedback certainly as well.
Yeah.
So would love to get into, I know you mentioned before kind of like your Oracle, your sort of design architecture. So I'd really love to sort of explore, how the bond system kind of works from an architecture perspective and kind of why you've built it the way that you built it.
So again, RAI will be very similar with more like with Psi than with DAI. We still have a thing called stability fees. That's basically a borrow rate, a fixed interest rate for opening your CDP, and that the system charges for you having an open position in the system. And compared to Psi or DAI, the stability fee in our case will be fixed. So you'll basically borrow whatever amount of RAI at a fixed interest rate per year. And that's pretty nice for people because they know they can estimate how much money they need to pay per each position. And part of the stability fees, part of this interest that's accrued in the system will go into a contract that's kind of a treasury. And this treasury kind of takes care of itself because it can allow other contracts or other addresses to pool funds from it and pay for anything that they want. And here is where the Oracle component comes in. We can have this treasury with funds in it. We can authorize a contract that's the Oracle contract, for example, Chainlink, to pool funds from this treasury. And the funds will be basically RAI, but we can also integrate with a DEX that swaps RAI, for example, with Link, and then the Oracle contract can pay with Link for the Chainlink call. So this can be done automatically. We just need kind of an external script, a bot that will kind of call the contract, and this bot can be maybe paid a couple of RAI per call so that they're incentivized to actually call the Oracle and update the price. And again, you don't need our permission or our funds or anyone else's funds to make the system actually work. The system pays for its own calls towards the Oracle. And that's the nice thing about the architecture.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. I love that sort of, again, it seems like you're just adding more layers of automation,
yeah,
and everything. And so again, it can be built and then it can essentially run and be hands off on its own.
Yeah. I mean, the idea over the long term is that, and I said this, I told this to the community in the past community calls that we had. I hate management and I hate control in general. I just want to build Rye, maybe build a couple of other systems, we'll see, and then just remove the company altogether, have a separate DAO that will kind of give grants to the community and continue to build on top of Rye, and then just, yeah, not have the company at all in this scenario.
Right. Okay. So definitely the approach, I guess, and so that brings up an interesting question about maybe governance. How does the governance in the system work, and essentially how will, maybe yourself at one point be able to take a step back? How might that work?
So I'm pretty open about the fact that in the first 6 to 18 months post Rye mainnet launch, we will most probably have control over the system, kind of full control. And this is not because, oh, I love control, whatever. This is because the system is extremely experimental. Nobody else has actually deployed the PI controller on chain and actually made the system be controlled by that PI. So we need kind of a way to actually pull the plug in case the system blows up. Again, at least in the first couple of months post-launch, until we gather some data, see that the PI actually works and so on. And after that, we'll most probably remove 90+% of the control over the system, and we will cede kind of multi-sig control or whatever mechanism we'll have to token holders. And token holders will most probably only be able to change a couple of parameters in the system that don't really impact the system that much. So in case they screw up, you have enough time to kind of exit the system. And that's the nice part, kind of bounding governance so that you can exit your position. And we will also have this separate DAO that will be separate from Reflexer. So they will have their own funds, they will have their own community, and that's kind of actually MetaCoin. That will take care of building on top of the protocol later on after the company shuts down. And the idea is that I personally don't want to be involved in that DAO. So I want to be completely removed from any management position. I don't want to have a say in how the DAO is being run. And I'm kind of thinking about, I don't know, kind of publicly posting something on Medium or something that's kind of my intention of staying out of the DAO.
Right. No, I think that's very interesting, and I think that's definitely meets, I think, maybe some of the philosophical kind of, I guess you'd say, leaning towards why some people really got involved in this space was this sort of, you can create this code, and then at some point you can step back and you can basically let the users determine how does it look a year from now.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And then I guess from that, what do you see then as in this space? Obviously, you're probably 100% of your time devoted to this, but what do you see maybe in this space that kind of is really interesting you right now? Maybe either linked to directly the work that you're doing, or maybe that's happening separate in sort of DeFi and decentralized finance. Any things that are really kind of interested to you right now?
There are a couple of things. So one of them is stuff like Nexus Mutual, where you have insurance, because we're actually thinking about integrating with different protocols that can offer our users some insurance. Again, CDP is getting liquidated, so we're kind of looking for partnerships and integrations on that front. And I'm also pretty excited about synthetic assets, so like Synthetics, UMA, or any other protocol that kind of can allow you to have exposure to gold or any other asset that's normally kind of in centralized finance, in the centralized finance world. And that's why we're actually building Rye. We know that these systems need collateral. And Rye is actually a version of ETH that's dampened. So if ETH goes crazy plus minus 50% in 1 hour or 1 day, Rye will actually try to dampen that price move. So it will try to kind of not go right away plus minus 50%. It will put 1 hour, 3 hours, 1 day, depending on how it's built, it will put kind of a delay in the price move. And that's a nice thing. You can actually see that ETH goes one way, and then you decide what you do with your Rye position, with your position that's backed by Rye.
Got it. So you almost have you have kind of some more options, and at the same time you sort of have this time factor, it seems like, that it gives you, so that you're not as I guess you say the risk is somewhat reduced because you have a little bit more time or flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that even, let's say the system doesn't offer you 3 days, it only offers you a mere 1 hour, but that's 1 hour that you didn't have before. That's the whole point. It also depends. So the RAI price moves also depend on how the market reacts. So if you're the last person to actually exit your position, RAI might actually kind of go down until then. So you already be down. You also need to kind of time the market in a way, but at least you have this option of timing the market and exiting your position before you get liquidated.
Yeah, understood. And I think at a time especially where obviously there's congestion on the network, there's extremely high gas prices, minutes matter.
Yeah.
I mean, in this current state of things. Perfect. I think so. On your talking about maybe your product roadmap, would just love to hear kind of maybe what your focus is as of now, and then maybe what is the next step for you.
I'm also in a way, I'm always in a way trying to lie to the community because I want to set low expectations. So, for example, in our first community call, we said that, hey, we want the smart contracts to be ready by December this year. Well, most of the smart contracts are already ready, actually, and we want to go in August towards the first audit. We want to have the first audit for most of the system. We will have probably second audit in November or something similar because we want to build the PI first and then actually go to the second round. But after the first audit in August, we also want to go to formal verification probably in September, if not October. So we want to kind of push development and be way faster than what we tell the people publicly. So that's kind of the next step, actually auditing most of the code.
Understood. Yeah. So it's kind of an almost an under promise, over provide, or give yourself a buffer so that you can account for things that might come up. But at the same time, it sounds like, you and the team are working hard every day and making progress.
Yeah. I mean, we back in June, we said that it will take probably 1 year to launch this. I don't want to take that long, but I've said that because this is basically an R&D project, and we might see that in 2 months from now. We might say, hey, there are a couple of edge cases that we need to take into account. Maybe we need to talk a bit more with Chainlink. We need more of their help, whatever. So we will take a couple of more months to actually build the final version of the system. So that's why we have that buffer in place. Make sure that we can actually deliver in time.
Understood. No, I think it makes total sense. And then I guess in terms of maybe your vision and kind of getting into taking a step back here and sort of how you see things, what do you think is the main innovation, or I guess what do you really want to see happen to this space? And I'm talking could be 2 to 10 years from now, but what is it that you really want to see to say, okay, as a group, as a community, we're taking a step in the right direction?
I want to see proper risk management in DeFi. So we don't yet have a mature options market. We don't have an insurance market that's mature enough. Nexus Mutual is not big enough right now to service all of DeFi. So I want to see more options to actually protect my position and all the positions that I might open in any protocol. That's what I want to see in DeFi until I can say that this is the future.
Got it. No, I think that makes sense. And I think it's interesting. We're seeing some of those things taking place, but at the same time, I think it's a classic case of we're seeing rapid innovation, I think, on one side, but there's a lot of catch up that needs to be done kind of on the other side. And I think, do you think it hits a point where it's almost, are you ever innovating too quickly? Do you think, you ever need to kind of pause or hit the brakes? Or do you think this is just the state of the world and essentially everything's always going to move quickly and we'll figure it out?
I think we should push both fronts at the same time. So we should not stop innovation. That's kind of another advantage of DeFi. You can just kind of fork my code or connect with my code and build something else. But at the same time, we should put more resources into actually building proper infrastructure. So that's why, for example, there were a lot of liquidations back in March during Black Thursday because we didn't have the right infrastructure in place. So we should also build that and at the same time innovate. We should put a bit more resources into kind of protecting our assets and then actually innovate.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. No, and I think people are going to continue to innovate. I think there just has to be on the other side, or as you said, maybe taking more resources to make sure that the other side's a little bit more balanced as we kind of rapidly move forward. I come to think 2017, 2018, DeFi, maybe not really even a word or a thing. And then it's almost like we woke up one day and this is, everyone's talking about it and how quickly that is. What do you think? I guess then it goes to, what do you think the next thing is that everyone's going to talk about? I mean, I'm saying outside the DeFi space, but what's that next area that you think is, this might be the one where we're going to see rapid growth?
Payments, hopefully, because right now DeFi is mostly a casino. In many ways, it's kind of just gambling. I mean, I think gambling is fine. It's still a use case, and many people want to gamble. But we still need to service actual real people who need payments, who need to feed themselves, who need to pay others and bring kind of money back home, send money back to their families, and so on. So that's the next thing I would focus on.
Awesome, payments. And then related to that, do you think that's a transactions per second issue? Do you think that's more of an infrastructure issue? You know, how do you see what needs to happen there in your opinion?
I think ease of use, that's UX is a problem. So we need to present gas prices, for example, are the biggest UX problem that we have right now. So we need to present this, we need to build either a layer 2 or present a product in a way that people actually want to use it. And also possibly integrate with the normal financial space. So yeah, I think someone will try to do a hybrid. It will probably look more like centralized than decentralized. That's why I'm saying it will probably be two different worlds. But I still think it should be done.
Okay, awesome. And then would love to hear, maybe this is all you're doing with your time, but if you had free time, hypothetically, what are the things you like to do in your free time when you have it outside of blockchain?
Mostly archery. So I want to go back to archery. I really like, a couple of years ago, I practiced archery for, I think, 10 months, and I really liked it. I had to give up on it because I had to study and I didn't have enough time, but I want to pick it up again.
Well, that's great. Well, hopefully sometime in the future, you'll be able to spend some time on archery. I know these things are consuming. You know, it's, you wake up in the morning and you go to sleep at night, and you're probably dreaming about it at the same time. But I think that's what makes this space amazing and what kind of moves forward. Just before we kind of wrap things up, anything else you'd like to talk about or like to share about what you're building or things going on right now?
Sure. So in the next couple of weeks, we plan to write a couple of bounties and post them on Gitcoin so people actually start to contribute with us. I didn't do that just yet because we tried to push development on our side and we didn't yet have something to actually post, but we want to do that pretty soon. And after that, right now we're trying to design a web app for the protocol so you can actually interact with it. You don't need to know programming to actually do that. And we plan to publish something, at least a demo, in the next couple of months. That's another big milestone.
All right. No, that's very interesting. And since we're on bounties, I think a lot of people go, how do you see, you know, in your opinion, what is like a good bounty, and maybe what is sort of your expectations? I think a lot of teams put out bounties, and sometimes I don't know if there's always, you know, what are you thinking when you create a bounty? Would just love to explore that.
It needs to be very small and targeted. So you need to tackle one thing at a time. You need to tell people, hey, do this specific thing that I need, because then you have a much higher probability of success. You won't kind of push 10 different things into one person and tell them, hey, do this, and I'll give you 3K or 5K or whatever. So it needs to be very simple. You need to give a lot of details about what you want to do. So you make sure that the person who builds the bounty, who submits something, actually knows everything about the project and knows what to do.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's good advice. Sometimes I know we get a lot of people that come into the community that are always asking for things. So I think that's some good advice there. And then what are some creative things? You know, there's a lot of hackathons going on right now, and a lot of people are sort of interested. And as a, you know, as a developer yourself, would love to hear your thoughts. What are some things that you think, you know, you would like to see maybe created that someone could do in a hackathon, maybe with Reflexer right, you know, right now or in the near future? What are some things you'd like to see?
One thing that I would really like to see with Rye is kind of use Rye to either build a stablecoin. So I really want to see how Rye behaves as collateral in stablecoin. So maybe even the only collateral in stablecoin, that would be really interesting. Or maybe help someone else build a generalized synthetic platform. So like maybe synthetics or someone else to actually allow people to have exposure to different types of assets that are kind of backed by Rye on chain.
All right, cool. Well, you heard it here first. So as you're as those people are working on those hackathons, I think you got some great ideas. Well, Stefan, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very interesting, and I think I'm excited to really see what's going to come out of this. You guys are iterating very, very quickly and moving very, very quickly as well. As you mentioned before, Discord is definitely the best place. So if someone's interested in engaging with you and finding out more, that's the best place for them to go.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. And then are there any other locations or Twitter or anything else that they could follow what you're doing?
We actually need to polish our Twitter. So right now, Discord is kind of the only best place that you can kind of join. We need to tell people more about kind of the Reflexer MetaCoin distinction, because there is a distinction. Reflexer will be kind of a normal company, boring company that will build the tech, and MetaCoin will most probably be the kind of the DAO or the community group that will take care of building on top of Reflexer.
Got it. Well, yeah, and thank you for making that distinction, because I know people do have some questions about that relationship there, which I certainly understand. Well, again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We'll be doing some slight edits, just making sure everything looks great. We'll be reposting this in the next 3 to 4 hours. We'll let everybody know as soon as that's reposted. Stefan, thank you again for taking your time. Really excited to see things as they progress, and love to have you on maybe 3-6 months from now, and we can talk about all the great things that you've kind of built in the meantime.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. You have a great day, and look forward to the next time.
Thanks.